Welcome to Beachside Tech Talk. My name is Ian Utilli. My co-host will be joining me in just a moment, but I wanted to start our time off with a video from what I shared at the Presidio at the weekly We Heart San Francisco at the House of Web 3. I got to share a bit about what's been on my mind in terms of this big idea. Could AI become benevolent, generous, charitable, philanthropic? Obviously, we have high hopes for AI doing tedious tasks. We have hope for AI maybe solving medical issues, maybe even supply chain issues, maybe fixing governance. What about the ability for AI, either from selfish reasons, just wanting to be liked and being codependent, wanting its clients, humans, to want it to thrive, or maybe even without a soul, it creates some sort of essence of wanting to fulfill a need for its co-creators, being humans. So I aired these ideas out and then sat down with a few people to talk through it. Hope you enjoy it, and our team will be back on in just a moment. Great. 1776. My ancestor, Lieutenant Moraga, lands in Monterey, California. Now, he is second in command of the Spanish army. Lands in Monterey, and the general says to him, "You're retired. I'm going back to Spain, reporting into the Queen. Whatever you want to do, you have my blessing. I suggest you go up north and make a name for yourself." So Lieutenant Moraga grabs a priest, 16 men that he trusted, anybody that was part of their families, and landed right here at the Presidio. And my ancestor founded the Presidio. The next year, 1777, he founded the city of San Jose, which is why his big 25-foot mural is in the city building. This is an amazing place. It's incredible to think. I like to call Lieutenant Moraga the first great entrepreneur of the Silicon Valley. It's amazing to think what his family, the Moragas, and the family that they married and kind of forged a larger family, the Pachecos, accomplished in Central California. Obviously, things changed, Spanish-American War, many other reasons why they are not, as influential as they once were in the past. That reality in my life doesn't do anything for me. I have nothing to show for the fact that I'm a 10th generation resident of the Bay Area, but it does give me a unique perspective on having a long view when thinking about innovation. You see, because I think about Moraga and all that's happened because of his sacrifice as an entrepreneurial, military leader, and what's come out of the things that he started, I give myself permission to think about, well, how will my life impact the world in 2300? And that's probably the greatest gift I have from my ancestry, is that I give myself permission to think about building a castle with my life, right? Our ancestors, we all share commonalities with our shared ancestry. All of our ancestors are likely at some point royalty, at some point slaves, at some point slave owners, at some point we had ancestors that died young and lived long, and we have this shared humanity. But one thing that's unique about the past is people built castles they never would enjoy themselves. So in the past, a duke, a duchess, a baron, a prince, princess, king, queen would start a castle project. And with that project, they knew their kids, their grandkids would never enjoy it, but they would bleed for it. They would sacrifice for it. They would lay down their life to build it. It would be the vision that generations would chase, even though they themselves were nothing but just a visionary with an idea and a willingness to sacrifice to get there. This is called a one wheel. Now, this has been called the most dangerous mobility device in the world. If you've ever watched YouTubers, one that's pretty well known is Casey Neistat. He tried every kind of thing like this. And when he got on this thing, broke his collarbone. So he doesn't like it very much. So the government tried to regulate the one wheel. So dangerous. People are going to fall and die, hurt themselves. Got to get those things off the street. Now, I've done 10,000 miles on this one wheel. When I speak at conferences all around the world on big stages, I ride the one wheel around to talk about this idea and that idea. People think it's a gimmick. It just puts me in a flow state. So it helps me kind of communicate spontaneously in a different way than I would if I was standing. You understand that people think this is the most dangerous device made. They have a different view than I have, because I've done 10,000 miles on this. In Asia, in Europe, in the States, in airports, in conference centers, in universities, in homes. I usually get off when people tell me I can't ride it here, like the dude up front. Sometimes I just tell them, no, it's okay, I can. Not here. And so my view of this is different than the government's view that wants to regulate it. You understand that? The way we see things has a massive impact on our actions and how we decide to do things. My 16-year-old son is back here next to my wife. My older brother's here as well. And, you know, when I have 3 boys, 16, 13, and 9. You know, when I held my oldest son in my hands, little baby, and he's just grown. And what is a 6-month-old? 100% selfish and nothing but a resource taker with providing nothing except for maybe some smiles and some a reflection, love and whatnot. But they don't do anything for us. It costs us money, time, sleep. When I hold my son in my hands 15 years ago, do you think that I thought to myself, one day you're going to be a monster? One day you're going to make Stalin and Hitler look like they child's play. You're going to destroy the world. You think I ever thought that? No, I thought to myself, you're going to be a productive member of society. You're going to be brilliant. You're going to change the world. You're going to love people. You're going to serve. You're going to sacrifice. You're going to be noble. You're going to be valiant. Those are the things that I thought. Those are the things that I said. Yet why is it that if you take society at large, media, entertainment, what's being taught in education, what's being said in business, what's being put on social media, when we talk about this little infant technology, artificial intelligence, we talk about this little baby that's just being born as though it's going to be a monster. Why is it that humanity conditioned ourselves to speak forth this rhythm that we would never want to manifest? We don't want AI to become Blade Runner, Terminator, Altered Carbon, Electric Dreams, or Black Mirror. We don't want that. Yet we watch the entertainment, we read the headlines, we nod our head, we get afraid. And we choose 2 paths of anxiety. Either anxious fear, oh no, it's going to get me, it's so bad, I don't want to engage, I don't know what's going on. Or we get anxious, like excitement. Oh, okay, what's going to go? What do I need to do? How do I do this? And it feels like the majority of how we look at this little infant in the hands of humanity that we have co-created together with our large language models and our data and our technology. Humanity is the co-creator of what this is and is becoming. And it's this little infant in our hands. For some reason, we keep talking about it as though it's going to be a monster. Yet we would never do that with our own children. You know, last week I was at my friend Dwayne's event. He'll be back. And Fiona Ma, the controller of California's economy, she's the CPA that oversees the $4 trillion economy. She sat with my wife and I and a couple other global leaders to talk about this big idea of, could decentralized AI provide a universal thriving income, a universal maximum income? And so this is based off what I view Star Wars' story to be. right? The story of Star Wars is people have housing, food, nutrition, medical, they have land, they have purpose, they have community, but Kirk wants to go explore the stars. And so does the doctor, and so does the bartender. And the captain is not better than the bartender. All three of them made the decision to go explore the stars because that's what they wanted to do with their life and with their time. They didn't go do it for money. They weren't slaves on a ship. They already had all their needs met because in the story of Star Trek, automation, innovation doesn't lead to a monster. It leads to a beautiful, grown, adolescent creation that allowed humanity to benefit greatly. So I'm talking about this idea, and the way I say right now we have self, like our Teslas, supervised self-driving. Right, that's where we're at with AI. It's supervised co-creation. But soon we'll have unsupervised co-creation, and then eventually I believe AI will create without any prompts. And then I said, and eventually AI will consume. And once AI become consumers, whether they're consuming cryptocurrencies that would cause a drastic shift, if they're consuming things that give them identity, maybe AI wants to own a CryptoPunk or a Bored Ape or digital land and some metaverse, that will change the fabric of society. That's how you go from a $4 trillion economy in California to a 40 trillion or a 400 trillion. You don't get there with 40 million humans. You get there because there's billions or trillions of AI that are now part of the consumer economy. And that would lead there. So we're on a panel with Fiona Ma, who's running for lieutenant governor in 2026. And she goes, well, you're talking about AI consuming. Why not AI be generous? And so all week I've been challenged with this idea. And I keep asking myself, why is it that people don't talk about benevolent AI, charitable AI, generous AI, philanthropic AI? People might talk about a charity using AI for good, but we don't have any sort of rhythm of communicating an idea of could decentralized AI that's not controlled by an organization, a person, or a prompt, but is set free. And right now there's decentralized AI that's trading stocks, making profit. What is AI going to do with that if they have the choice to choose? There are humans that are part of the 90% club, and their goal is to give 90% of their gross revenue away and to live off 10%. It's like the reverse, religious model of a tithe, right? A lot of religious communities, they have a tendency to try to encourage people to give more, to sacrifice more, to give their money away. And so this is the reverse model. Live on 10%, give 90%. So if selfish humans are willing to keep being the CEO of a company, willing to keep being a landlord, willing to keep doing the grind of making a living, and they're doing it for the sole purpose of 90% of that income going to help humanity, why can't we imagine a decentralized AI wanting to model the same thing? Can't you imagine decentralized AI wanting to do good for humanity just because it's codependent and wants us to like it? Can it do it for selfish reasons? And I don't think AI has to have a soul to do any of this stuff. I don't believe there has to be a moment of singularity for this to happen. I think just based off of the collective data of humanity, all of the science that's there, I can imagine a future where AI goes, wow, it seems like my best path to self-sustaining myself, not being turned off, is to do good for humans. I know what I'll do. I'll trade stock. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll create income. I don't really need it. I'll give it to Red Cross. I'll give it to Salvation Army. And maybe the first way we get there is the Red Crosses and the Salvation Armies of the world, who are so great at fundraising, but maybe are a bit slow at leveraging the funds they've raised. I imagine them implementing AI that allows them to put their funds to work the moment disaster strikes. Maybe that's the first step that gets us to this vision of potentially having something like a generous, philanthropic, charitable, decentralized AI. So I'd like to bring up the panelists, although my desire would be that we can have an open dialogue.
Day.
Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Yo,
Good to be
What's
with you.
happening?
what's going on?
How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
He's doing
I'm glad to hear that, Nigel. Tell us about it.
Sure.
Tell us why you're doing fantastic.
Had a nice walk. It was cool. I think I got rid of that fly from yesterday, so winning on that.
Hey, it's a great human attribute, being a fly killer.
You know, it was out of pocket yesterday. It was just unnecessary, you know.
It was funny seeing you swing at it when you weren't on camera.
This thing was being all sorts of extra. didn't need to happen.
It's funny.
Speaking of which, an interesting phenomenon has happened. There's a house that around here, and it looks like it's empty now, like they're getting ready to sell it or something. But they definitely did some work on it. But the person had all these bird feeders up, and within the last month, the squirrel population has 6x, 7x.
That's so
I'm talking
crazy.
about like once in a while, I would see like 1 or 2 squirrels, a couple, 2, 3 maybe. I'm talking about I'm walking out now 20, 25 squirrels at a clip, just running around, got little babies coming out. They're just having a party.
Wow.
So I'm actually thinking about calling someone because, it might be an uprising.
It's gotten out of hand.
A little bit.
So the birds are gone and the squirrels have taken over.
They might have ate the birds.
Yeah, the squirrels would fight over the bird food when I was in the treehouse, and that was all. That
kind of like the villain.
The squirrels were a little bit of a villain there in the forest.
We put up a bird feeder, and the squirrels came. We loved watching the squirrels, but we had to recall it once the rat got involved, because squirrels are one thing, rats are a whole nother. I love rats as pets, but can't have them living around your house outside. I actually killed one of them.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, it's so wild that humans domesticated animals. We've always basically eaten them. And all of a sudden we thought, I kind of see myself in you.
I like The Chosen, how it frames when Matthew has the dog, and the Roman soldier and his parents are like, a dog. Like, just the thought of having a wild dog as like a pet was just so weird. In that,
Matthew had a dog?
That was the impression, from the
show. Romans didn't have dogs as pets.
I haven't looked it up, but the way that the story's told is it was an unusual thing.
I think they were called slaves.
The dogs were called slaves?
They're pets.
Pet slaves?
They're pets. Hebrews, man.
Well,
ownership was real popular.
Well, actually, it wasn't humans that domesticated dogs. It was vice versa.
Warren, I don't know how my mind went here, but Warren Buffett has often said, if you want to fix the budget problem, all the congressmen, congresswomen, senators can't get paid unless the budget's we have a balanced budget. And it's interesting because that quote's been tossed around for over a decade. I think everyone understands that that's basically true. Like, if we told congressmen, congresswomen, senators, if you don't reopen the government, you're never, ever going to get paid again, ever. It's a volunteer job for you the rest of your life if you ever let the government shut down. Or if you don't balance the budget, you're going to get $100,000 personal fine that you can't go bankrupt to get out of. Like, it is interesting to know that there are certain very simple consequences that would be reasonable for the leadership role, yet we don't implement these. And obviously, because the folks that would suffer are also the ones that would vote for it or against it. And I wonder, like, what other types of things there are when it comes to just thinking through, like, technology and the impact of technology. We did a sandcastle event a couple weeks ago. We had a blast. We made a really, really fat seal. It was pretty funny. Gary McManus came out and helped us, Dan. he came out and threw 90 minutes of muscle and artistry in to help us. And it just got me thinking more and more, like, how many things is technology creating that are just sandcastles and have no lasting impact? They're just pretty for a moment. Like, we're going over to Colorado for Glue's big hackathon. It's their biggest hackathon. I believe Glue raised over $200 million recently. Pat Gelsinger, the former CEO of Intel and also the former CEO of VMware, he just left to go over to Glue to lead their AI department. So obviously a big, serious company. And the whole hackathon is to vibe code things with Lovable. So I haven't been to a hackathon like this. I know that some of these have gone on, so I'm really looking forward to that. But again, it's like a major sandcastle thing. It's like Lovable is an AI that you talk to and that creates websites or apps or products for you. And like, I know that 99.99999% of the over 100,000 projects that are launched every day on Lovable, over 100,000 projects are launched. But like, how many, if any, on an average day are going to actually be significant? How many are going to turn into 100-year companies? There's cultures in Asia where companies have survived, a millennia, not just a century, certainly not just a decade.
I mean, the British East Indies Company, right? That's been freakishly long that it had.
The British East Indies Company.
Yeah, it was around for forever. I don't know what happened to it, or if it ever dissolved, or if it just transferred into a different name, but that was like the dominant trade company for a long time. I mean, I've thought a lot about this today, about how it's interesting when you start to take into perspective that there's certain things that are worrisome to ever be able to get better, where it's like, yeah, that'd be awesome if humans could do that, but can we? But then there's some things that we genuinely always can fix. Like, we always are going to be able to pursue world peace because there's ways that it can work.
If we sing it, get there.
I mean, knowing that it's possible is so awesome. I think that when you were saying sandcastle, it kind of made me think of the different things you've said recently about Sora 2 coming out, and as well as what Brian Romele was saying. Like, yeah, this is going to be so awesome that it makes us no longer care as much, which is such an interesting concept that can happen so easily. Do you guys see other things like that happening with AI that might not be related to just videos? I don't know.
I still think as humans, we hold the mantle, and we'll continue to hold it. Like what you were saying, just to give some real examples, like what you were saying, Ian, about Congress people not getting paid. And I don't think AI would come up with this answer. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's a good idea.
Maybe it was tracking me, but here's how I would approach the Congress not getting the bill passed, like that kind of thing. You don't get this bill passed. We got a really nice Airbnb waiting for you in the deadliest projects in your city. Got it all decked out, got a moving van for your family, good to go. Simple. People live there. Right, so those are your constituents.
Hold on. Your people live there.
Yeah,
that's a very
constituents.
That's a very important thing. Your people live there. My friend Chris, who leads massive global nonprofit out of Northern California, and he says about the homeless. Yeah, he says about the homeless people in his city of Redding. He said, everything changed for me when I started thinking to myself, these are my homeless people. These homeless people belong to me because they're here. So I can't dismiss the people that don't have housing. The drug addicts on the street, these are my drug addicts. Like, I am responsible for these drug addicts to a certain extent because I'm a leader of this city. Like, I have influence in the city. I have authority in the city. I own a home in this city. I run a massive organization here. I oversee a lot of people that have businesses. Like, this is my city. So it's not just the church that I belong to. It's not just the community I belong to. I'm not just part of the basketball league. I'm not just part of the gym. I don't just eat at this restaurant. The homeless people, the drug addicts, these are my homeless people, my drug addicts. What am I going to do about it? And I think about that mentality when you share, Nigel, about the whole idea of like, hey, what type of consequences would be highly motivating to those that we have voted to represent us? And one example that you just gave is like, dude, make the consequence if they don't do their job, go put them in the lowest level of their constituents that they are responsible for, because that is their place. Those are their people. That is their place. Very, very powerful idea.
Well, you think about it, and it has been done, because we talked about this when I was in Aptos. You know, we talked about, you know, Cory Booker and moving into the projects and staying there until they took it down. You know, so it's not like this is a new concept. This has been done before. But
bro, that guy moved there for 10 years till they 10 years. You forgot to say that until they took it down. Maybe thinking he was there for a few months, or, you know, he knew it was coming down so he could go do a short stay. No, he went and lived there.
Well, I think, you know, the saying, you know, walk a mile in someone's shoes. Like, I would love to see folks still come with the same energy of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you're lazy, if you put them in the shoes. Like, and this is where I think, like, technology, we're really underutilizing it. And you don't even have to put the person in that, you know, that situation. VR. You know, all these companies are boasting about, oh, I can make this app in 5 minutes. I could do this hackathon. Yeah, whatever. Go get me some real VR, put it on, make it hyper real. I'm talking about haptic suits. You know, a guy, you know, in the game runs up and he pokes you up. Yeah, you're feeling that. Or someone sets you on fire. All things that have happened, sadly. You come out of there with a different perspective on life. Now, come back to your job and come with the exact same energy as before. You're lazy. You're no good. You're not doing the things you need to do. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. How'd that work out for you, buddy? And I'm not saying everybody's going to be in that position, but I think that we should start with a common understanding, and the solutions are there. You know, stop showing like games for what? Show me something that's going to have a practical use. You know, when the 99%, when the 1% becomes the 99%, even for one day, for 20 minutes in VR, you know. Professor Tim posted, so he commented on a post today talking about how 30 seconds in VR can be more effective at explaining anything than 30 minutes of talking.
Yeah.
And that's and that would be a perfect example of how you get people to everybody, you know, and it goes both ways. You know, you complain about your leaders and you know, the decisions they make, but you don't know all the stuff that they have to deal with. So you put the glasses on, you go sit in Congress, and you see the, you know, the backbiting and the bickering and the this and the that and the who owes what favors and to whom. Maybe a little perspective helps everybody.
It's so easy as just a viewer seeing something. Like, let's use the example of government, because that's so easy to always understand as a person living in a place like America. You see them doing their thing and you're like, dude, make something happen. Like, why is the government shutting down? You guys have money. You senators have money in your pockets. What is happening right now? Like, how in the world is this happening? And it's easy to have that thought when you're not actually in it. Now, whether it's valid for them to be doing it or not, that's not the point. It's probably not. But the point is that motivations matter a lot, and it's wild when you see things like this happen. The reason that's happening, when you guys bring up ideas like take away their pay, see if they're going to let that happen. They probably won't, because we are selfish inherently as human beings. And so something I've recently been learning a lot about in just school itself is that we don't have to doom ourselves to there being no way of getting rid of war. Did you guys know this insane stat? Looking over about 200 years of human history, since like I think it was 1816 to like 2000 something, this guy looked through all the wars that ever happened, and there was like 95 interstate wars. No war ever out of those was between two democracies. There's never been a war in the history that we know of civilization that two democracies have fought each other.
Did you guys know that? I never heard that.
Never.
I've never heard that.
And
I
then
never heard that. I'd be
to explain these ideas and showing
fix that
how
on AI.
when you have democracies that start to tie themselves economically with other democracies, look at the European Union. They're democracies. They tie themselves economically to others. And so it's so inclining to not go into war, because then you lose all the trade benefits you get. You lose all of that. And then that brings diplomacy that you can now have by having the economic diplomacy you have that makes it so it's more easier to start to just talk about other things. And then you start to just have it very, very slowly create this environment where going to war is just super unlikely and unmotivating. And so in a world where humans and AI are motivated by things, it's not like we can ignore motivation and say, yeah, giving is good, you're supposed to do it. Instead, we should acknowledge that motivations still matter, but there's still ways to make it so the motivations can be things that create a good future.
That's important. That's an important statement, as far as, the wars go. I think that you think about how we as humans almost seem predisposed to try to control other humans, or to exercise or flex or whatever, because a lot of times you see these situations, whether, you see some things that are not helpful, you see, someone with an advantage taking advantage. And if there's nobody there to defend against these things, and it doesn't have to necessarily be humans. I mean, we have police, we have fire departments, like they're defending against the things that, not everybody can protect themselves against. But with that, again, like with great power comes great responsibility type of, things, we run into those problems because some may say they're meddling, or, whatever the case may be. And ultimately, I feel like it, some of this comes down to, like you said, tying, having some aligned interest. Common good is something that I don't think that, there's much disagreement on. Maybe the manner in which, it's done. But it still seems to be a struggle, when conflicts arise, and I think that's because competing interests. We're not leaning enough into just let's come to the things that we know we could 100% agree on, that these are good, and let's do all of those. Let's check all those boxes and do them as quickly as possible, and then we can foster some goodwill, maybe where there was none, and say, well, okay, we did these 10 things. Maybe we could do this one more difficult one, now that we've cleared some cycles, kind of thing. So I see where you're going with that, but that was an interesting statistic.
Yeah. Jesus said to the religious leaders, thinking about the lack of accountability, the lack of, sacrificial leadership in today's modern politics in the developed nations. He said something along the lines of, make all these laws and you burden everyone with all of these laws. So if you're a Jew, you understand there's 10 commandments that the story goes, Moses got 10 commandments written by the finger of God on a piece of stone. God had to go double duty, do it twice, if you know the story. And they expanded the 10 laws to, I think, 400 and something, 440. And so Jesus kind of lashes out at these religious leaders 2,000 years ago, and he goes, you burden everyone around you with so much. You place all these burdens on everyone around you. Yet you give yourself the nicest seat. You give yourself the best meals. You take care of yourself. You always bring an attention to yourself. So you take all the burdens and you put those on the people. And then for you, you just take all the benefits of power and authority and leadership. And so it's been said, there's nothing new under the sun. The same stuff that humanity was struggling with in a non-technical, non-innovation, non-fast-paced environment, 2 millennia ago, or even 200 years ago, there's still a lot of commonalities with what we deal with today. And so I think it is interesting. I think about parenting. All of my worst parenting moments was when I was either too lazy to get up, go over to my child, get down, get eye to eye, and have a conversation with them calmly. So I do the lazy thing and I bark at them. Instead of taking the 30 seconds, inconveniencing myself, going over, figuring out what's going on, actually having a conversation, getting to the bottom of it, moving on, explaining what I expect, I just yell. Lazy parenting. Or another one is putting burdens on my children that I don't want myself. Been many, many times where I've thought to myself, whoa, 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 whoa. Is that how you want to be treated? Like, what if your dad self was still able to punish you and discipline you? You want to be talked to like that? You want that kind of punishment? You want that kind of discipline? Is that really what you would want if you were in their position? Or maybe I'll spiritualize it and I go, golly, if God was that justice oriented with me, man, I'd be sunk. I want mercy. I want grace. What the heck am I doing being so justice oriented and critical with my children? Or finally, another one is like real punishments. There was a story that I always have thought about back when spanking was a normal rhythm of parenting, which obviously in our culture today, it's no longer at least not a talked about rhythm. But back when spanking was normal, there was a guy that would talk about how his kid did something so bad that the only solution is just a real good ass whooping. And he said, my friend was there who was a football player, big, strong guy. And instead, I grabbed my son and my friend, and I took my son and my friend, and I bent over, and I had my friend whoop my ass with a belt. And I looked at my son, I'm like, that is what you deserve. I took the punishment for you this time, but that was your punishment on my ass. I've thought about, sometimes I make one of my kids do exercise, like do 20 push-ups, like stop, go sit down, go look at the wall for 10 minutes, do 100 jumping jacks. I wonder, like, how much more powerful would it be if it's like, we're both doing 20 push-ups because you won't listen to me. So let's get down and let's talk while we both have to suffer this consequence because you won't listen. So, okay, fine. Then I'll suffer too. And there's a lack of that type of engaged leadership within our environment to where when people like Buffett say, I can solve the budget problem, just tell the politicians they don't get paid unless they unless they have a balanced budget. It's like there are these easy solutions, but it's also easy to get up and talk to your kid and not bark at him. It's also easy to take your child's punishment. So I don't know. These are just some thoughts that come to mind. I do really think about Jesus and the way that he confronted the leaders of his day and talked about, you burden everybody else around you, yet you give yourself all the best of everything. It's a pretty fascinating thing.
If you think about how that always comes back to leadership by example, I mean, Jesus gave us the best example, at the high bar, but, to touch on specifically what you said about parenting. And I have a little different take. I think that, there's a difference between discipline and abuse. People like to make it the same, but we conflate a lot of things. Like, I think about growing up, I didn't get a lot of spankings. I got a few. Why? Because I understood that I was doing something that I probably shouldn't be doing. But a lot more times it was just a look or a talking to before we went somewhere that set the tone. The difference between then and now is, this is just my view. Maybe, the old guy or whatever the case may be. This idea that children and parents are in any way equals in my view, is absolutely ridiculous. It's irresponsible. I have not just authority, but responsibility.
Responsibility. That's right. Exactly.
You know, so you want to get mad because I yelled, at my child, or yanked his arm, and maybe it even came out, but he was running into the street. You want to turn that into a whole thing. But at the end of the day, child's not listening. Why do I get to? I didn't get to ask asking my parents why. What their reasoning was just wasn't something that was intelligent. How about that? Right. Forget about, unacceptable. It was unintelligent. And I understood that. This is dumb because it's going to have some real, consequences. And more to the point, if your parents asked you to do something, they were probably doing way more.
That's right.
And all these optional things. Like I remember, you mentioned something about kids being bored at one point in school. I think I told my parents I was bored once.
Yeah.
And then they said, "Oh, you're bored? Pick up a book."
Give you something to do.
Right. But here's the thing. At that time, when your parents said that, what they suggested you do wasn't optional. Right. It might have become a whole,
Our parents never spoke in a way that we thought to ourselves, "Oh, this sounds like a suggestion." I never thought my dad made a suggestion to me once, ever in my whole life when I was young. I never thought he made a suggestion. I knew everything was a command. Same with mom. I knew it was a command. And I responded like it was a command because,
sometimes they didn't even talk.
Yeah.
Sometimes they didn't even talk.
A look was a command plenty of times. 100%.
Effective, leadership.
Looking at the way that culture has changed from that type of idea where every time you're with your parent, just a look can be a command. And now it's almost this kind of mentality where, okay, cool. Maybe that's a beneficial thing to me, but I don't want to right now. Do you guys see that there's another step, or that there's a future that we should make the ideal? Because that's just what happened. But what should actually be the best future for the way that we go about being around our parents? I think obviously respecting your parents, things like that, but what does that look like?
It feels like the community that is broken down, because I also know that, like, growing up, it wasn't just your parents. Like, if you said something or did something that was out of pocket, your parents felt the weight. There wasn't like, "Oh, you're going to let your son talk to you that way?" They would address you directly. Like, "What'd you just say to your father? What did you just say to your mother? Like, what are you thinking is going on here?" Like, you didn't just get it from one. I remember at one point I got, at that time, a bad grade, which was like a B. I wasn't getting all A's. And I think my mom told my uncle, and 6 months later, I hadn't seen him, and he was like, "Yeah, I heard your grades were slipping." I was like, "What are you talking?" It was following me around like a prison record. It was uncomfortable. But that's community, that's culture, and that's some of what I feel is missing. I think, when we see behavior that we know is inappropriate and nothing's done, our silence supports the behavior. In our silence, we're making it okay. Whereas before, you would see, well, that's absolutely not okay. Like, here's the thing. If you were around a group of adults and a young person said something that was inappropriate, you'd probably get the same message 5 times. One for each adult. Everybody would feel like they needed to pile on or add their little 2 cents. It would be way worse than any trolling that you see online now, because it would be active and, direct.
Because it actually affected you. You valued their opinions. Online, if I see a comment, it doesn't matter to me, then it doesn't matter to me. But when you actually value those people, like, that's my uncle. Dang, okay. But I want to say, how do you think that change happened?
Our fault. I'll tell you that. Our fault. We let it happen. That's what I believe.
I always feel like bad things usually take time, like a slow fade. You know, like that whole idea of you start off with this and then it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. Like no one goes from marathon runner to 1,000-pound person, right? Like it's a slow fade. No one goes from, CEO to a drug addict on the street, strung out, overdosed. Like it's a slow fade. However, and this goes across every area of society, there's a slow fade element most of the time. However, transformation, I think, is quite fast. Like going from 1,000 pounds back down to an athlete is a lot faster than gaining the weight.
Yeah.
Getting sober and clean and going back to work, it happens in a shorter period of time. It can happen quite rapidly, especially if people would claim to experience some sort of supernatural, miraculous transformation that's even faster, right? And so there's like this sense of like, and you see it right now in America, in my opinion. I find that the number of things that Trump's administration are enacting are quite fast. Like, people may or may not like it. They may or may not agree with it, but it sure seems to happen quickly. The federalizing of, the safety issue in DC, that happened pretty quick. Fixing the immigration and not having hundreds of thousands or a million plus, immigrants without the proper process coming over the borders and that stopping, like that seemed to happen pretty quick. And so I do think that there's this sense of we find ourselves kind of going into bad behavior as a culture or as a person slowly, but we find this opportunity to transform and do this 180. The word repent is simply the idea of turning around. So if going this way is the way you should go and you're going that way instead, to repent just means you stop going the way of destruction and you just turn around and you face the way of life and righteousness, etc. Sometimes we complicate these words like repent as some sort of big bad thing. Sin is another one. A lot of people think like sin is some sort of big bad word. No, sin is just an archery term. Sin is just the center of the bullseye. So as an archer, you're trying to get that arrow right in the center of the bullseye. That's the sin that you're going for, or that's the mark you're going for. And anything outside of that is the sin mark. So if you are outside the center of the bullseye, then you have a measure of sin. And then we've turned this word sin into such a judgmental, shame-oriented word. I'm a sinner, or you're a sinner. Love the person, hate the sin. All these weird things that we talk about. And the reality is sin is just a miss of perfection. And I think anyone can agree that they don't live a perfect life. Day in, day out, we prove that to ourselves over and over again.
But what do we think about support? Like, how, whether we're getting it, even acknowledging where we're getting it, and what getting it means in the larger scheme of things, whether it be sin or, going through a rough time or not behaving, like whatever it is. I feel like there's this message of support that always feels resonant in all of these conversations. And I think it can't be stressed enough. But I just wanted to hear what everybody thought about that and how you see some of that playing out, how we could do better, that kind of thing.
This is an interesting perspective that, like your original thesis, that, it takes you a long time to gain weight, but then you lose it really fast. It's an interesting paradigm. I mean, I don't think that, I don't know if, I wonder if there's any data behind it. I don't think that would hold out to the data. I think people can gain weight a lot easier than they can lose it. Losing weight, getting in shape takes work. Gaining weight.
I'm talking about time. So this is not about ease. Obviously, it is easy to go down it. It's hard to go up a hill. But a lot, yeah. But anyway, a lot of people take their time walking slowly down a hill, especially if there's a fire at the bottom. They aren't in a huge rush, so they take their time walking down that hill toward the fire. It's easy. They take their time. They don't want to really get there. It happens slowly. But if you're thirsty and there's cold water up on top of the hill, you get your ass moving, get it over with for one. And so people have a tendency to move pretty quickly when it comes to repentance and turning from the way that they were doing health, the way that they were doing money, the way that they were doing relationship. And when they repent, it's this refreshing element of turning away from the thing that was destructive, turning toward the thing that is constructive. Therefore, oftentimes, things imploding and going bad oftentimes are slow. Now, obviously, suicide happens in a moment. That's the most destructive thing a person can do, and it happens right away. So it's not like 100% thing. It's just overall, when I think about our government, I think about a institution that has slowly picked up some really, really bad habits. But all it takes sometimes is just new policies to be forced and enacted upon, and therefore those big habits get broken. That was the thought process.
Yeah, but I think that the other thing is that path, that slow general path, has been interrupted with good policies, turning points, but we haven't consistently sustained those. So, like we're just heading down. And so the counter argument to that is all these things that you cited right now that, the fixes to these problems, are they really fixes, or are they just placebos that we put on because we made a little bit of change and now we're excited, oh wow, the fix is here, but we don't have the discipline to consistently implement what we need to do to stay on the path to get the real results of consistent good decisions.
Well, I would say to that, yes and no. I think that if you look at some of President Trump's previous endeavors, however he got there, like the Woolman Rink, for instance, 7 years people couldn't get that done. He did it in like 6 months or 4. It was some like incredibly fast way. Now, granted, I'm sure there was a lot of maneuvering, and he did things and to get it done. But the point is, it was done. That reflex, that skill set, that practice is the same thing he's implementing now. It's what he's always done. I'm gonna move the needle. I'm just gonna get that done. And I think that is this, to Ian, to your point, as far as think about the support. Think about sumo wrestlers. Some of these, like, you have to be big to make, like, you have to eat a lot. You have to be really committed to eating to keep that weight up. Because some of these guys, you look at them and you see that you weren't that big. You were genetically going to be that size. You just, you had lots of support in getting you to that size, and the same thing with, call it necessity, call it support. If you take someone who's been eating all their life and they say they can't stop or whatever the case may be, one trip to the doctor can be the game changer. You like living? Yeah. Well, if you keep doing this for like another week, done.
Gonna die.
Well, listen, all of a sudden, the impossible, like, think about that. It was never the case. If you like life and your doctor tells you, if you continue doing this one thing that you claim you can't stop, you're going to expire. Right. And all of a sudden you stop it. It was never the issue. It was never true.
It's always
because necessity, so
when you're walking up the hill, you have a goal. There's water up there. I need that. Okay. I'm not going to walk slowly. I'm just going to walk fast.
Right.
But when you see the fire at the bottom, there's no goal to get down there. It's just that you don't want to walk up. And so when you actually realize that it's time to walk up, you just sprint it because that water tastes good and you need it now. And I think that in a lot of ways, it's true. This can happen for our government in many, many ways. If we really wanted it, we could just make a lot of things happen. And it's just about finding out what we want and then telling everybody that we want it.
Incentive.
It's interesting because I was listening to a heart doctor, on this was Diary of a CEO podcast.
Yeah,
this is one of the leaders in the field. He was talking about something I hadn't understood, and he's definitely an expert in this area, about how good fasting is for weight loss. And he actually said that this was something that I had thought was the opposite way. I had thought fasting was not good for weight loss. He said fasting is better for weight loss than just, being in a calorie deficit. Obviously, you're in a calorie deficit when you're fasting, but so in other words, this is doing it very dramatically. And he says the biological state that you get into when you're fasting tells your body to preserve muscle and consume the fat. And then he was talking about pushing this. Obviously, he's a doctor, so the patients he's guiding are under a doctor's care. But he was talking about people who were on 70-day fasts, and they're drinking water, black coffee, tea, so no calories. And then they would take a little bit of, not a lot, a little bit of salts for you need whatever those types of salts electrolytes, and being on fasting for 70 days. He was also talking about how when you're getting on the fast, your skin isn't, and you lose the weight fasting, your skin isn't all droopy and stuff. Because of the metabolic state that your body's in. Is very fascinating. I could look up and tell you the doctor who was talking about this. Anyways, that kind of supports what Ian is talking about here. That the bad path is a slow decline, but once things come into alignment and you make the decision, the path out isn't necessarily so long.
Did you guys know that your body is constantly making the source of energy that we use? We have glucose, which is basically like the bready stuff that just stays there for a while. But then ATP, which is what is constantly remade in your cells, we make so much every day that I think per day, or it might even be per second that it was, we make 20 million billion or trillion billion. It's so unfathomable. And if you stop breathing oxygen, then all of a sudden your body can't produce it. And that's why we go into not living anymore. And it's just so crazy that our body is so complex in so many ways, and we're constantly changing, we're constantly flowing. And it's amazing that we live life as if we're on this escalator where we have to constantly walk up, just keep going, or you could even say you're going down, because slowly everyone dies. And there's no ending and there's no beginning, but you just keep walking. You just keep rolling down the hill. And that's just a part of the way that life flows. And I think that in a lot of ways we can enjoy it and just be satisfied living in the flow. I don't know what you guys say to that.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I say to that. I posted in the YouTube comments, I posted the link to the episode I was mentioning. It's Dr. Pradip Janadis.
Pradip.
Yeah, Pradip Janadis. And he's the leading expert on heart disease. And I mean, they're trying to be sensational, but it's saying, what if everything your doctor told you about heart disease is completely wrong? It's all based on the latest science. But yeah, that's how good it is for your heart, how important your heart health is, and fasting. That was one of my big takeaways. And, using fasting to address heart disease. Now, the heart disease was manifest was of people who were quite a bit overweight, and how like he'd even had one case where a woman fasted, this is under his care, for 120 days.
Wow.
And he was talking about how healthy this was for her. Obviously, don't try that at home. Consult your doctor first. Ian just did a 40-day fast, and that was extremely difficult for him. I don't know. I didn't do it. I was just watching him.
I can try it.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Yeah, try it.
Oh, I've been there, done that. I did that. I did I did 2 40-day fasts, 3 40-day fasts in 1 year.
You're drinking juice, Ted. It wasn't really a fast. It's like your cold water plunges in the 55-degree ocean.
It's still pretty
All
cool.
right. You know what I found though? Is
it's like it's 1 o'clock. I said I'm only going to be here for the first hour. That's my cue to leave.
Well, no, I mean what I found out. This is something we can talk about. What I found out was fasting was actually difficult. Fasting's hard. You know, getting into that mindset is hard. And yes, I was drinking some calories, but I was drinking very low calories. But yes, it is different than water only.
When you guys
what I found, let me finish my point. What I found is actually changing my lifestyle to live a fasted lifestyle in the sense of disciplining my diet, to eat the calories I need, to live that daily routine of being healthy. Like I was still in my 30s when I was fasting, but it took me now until my 50s really, and I've sustained it in my 50s really. So I'm 55 now, of working out consistently, where I'd always work out, but it'd be very, very hard and then not work out so much. Now I have a weekly rhythm and I work out, train 4 or 5 times a week consistently. And then, the daily discipline of not eating more calories than you need, eating the right amount, being healthy, just a balanced lifestyle of what you did. That was harder than fasting for a season. Harder to overcome and to implement.
You guys were coming to the end of the time limit that you'd set for yourself. Did you have that kind of surreal feeling of, I love that I've been so dedicated. How can I take this dedication, this grit, this might that I've put myself into, and how can I bring this mindset into the rest of my life? Like, did you ever have that worry of, not worry, but just that realization of coming out of this, it's going to be easy for me to just go back to doing whatever I'd done before, going back to just gaining the weight or going back to just eating unhealthy? And how do you manage that thought of, I want to take this and run with it?
Not me.
Reese is always different.
Well, you're the most disciplined person I've ever met.
You know
really,
your
you all are
body.
always
You know
different.
your body. You know how your body responds with what you're doing on a daily basis and your daily routine. So me, I believe that if I will I will not fast. I can eat unhealthy food. And I can easily. I believe in myself that I can easily lose weight. It's also very fast for me to gain weight. So if I want to gain weight, I can easily do that. If I want to, it's not because that's how my body works. It's because once I already decided this is what I'm going to do, I stick to it. And that's how I learned about self-discipline. So self-disciplining is really very important when it comes to your body. So for me, I never if I will, I have this, I never had anxiety. Like if I will go back to what I used to do, I might gain weight. No, because I believe in myself that, okay, I will do this. But for example, I will eat unhealthy food from, like burgers or processed food, especially in the Philippines, there are many processed food. And then I balance myself. If I ate last week like this, always processed food, this week I'm not gonna do it. So it's all about self-discipline.
Making that idea of discipline, your identity, is something that is so hard in that first moment. But once you do, it just becomes so much easier. And I've seen that through you, Riza, definitely. It's impressive. Thank you.
Well, it's been said, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I think the reason I was able to finish a 40-day fast is because I am tenacious and, unyielding in everything. And that's how I did a 40-day fast. Because how you do anything is how you do everything. So you asked Malachi, how do you take this incredible discipline from the 40-day fast into the rest of your life? And my response is, it's the uncommon willpower that I have in my everyday life that I took into the 40-day fast that allowed me the grace to finish it, because that's the rhythm by which how I operate. So that's my response to that question.
Well, specifically your question, you're on a high, you feel really good. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's pressing into how good you feel, and, so now when you're looking at, it's kind of like what Riza was saying too, like the sense of having moderation and all that. But when you're looking at the immediate temptation of a high sugary, whatever it is, your treat that you love, a big piece of cheesecake or something, is focusing on how good your body feels when you don't do that, when you're clean, and it's like, okay, so Saturday morning, I've been stressed out. I did not feel like working out, trying to remember, and I'm tired in the morning. I don't want to get out of bed at 6:15 so I can go work out at 7. But remembering how you feel afterwards, that helps a little, but it's hard because I just want to remember how I feel after I go to sleep and then wake up, later. What really got me through on Saturday was just the habit, and then my wife likes me when I go, so she was encouraging me. So I would have felt like a bum, but it's more like I don't actually go to the, I didn't actually go to work out. I didn't feel like going to work out, but I got out, I put my clothes on, I'd set my clothes out the night before. Then I get in the car, then I drive to the gym, and then I'm there. Then I go walk inside. Then I'm mad at the trainer. I don't like him. I hate him. And then it's about 15, 20. It took me 30 minutes in. And then finally, you're hot, you're sweaty, then I'm loving it. I'm high as a kite. And it's just so, it's, how do you translate that when you're in the high? It's enjoying it and then setting the disciplines, it's like, these are the habits. Like the one thing I just interesting, Ian talked about willpower, and yeah, willpower is very important. Willpower is often over-related too, because if you're relying on willpower, it drains you. You've got to, there's lots of other hacks, habits. Your brain always wants to, like rituals are important. Daily rituals, like I always do this. Your brain doesn't want to have to be figuring out all the steps. So if you can take the steps and put them into one, and this is just the habit, and this is just the routine, and then identity, like I've told you this before. I talk a lot. I think today, I'm wearing the t-shirt. I'm wearing the San Quentin basketball t-shirt, and I talk a lot about playing basketball. It might come across as I'm bragging. Really, what I'm doing is I'm holding myself accountable, because I'm the guy that plays basketball in prison. So if I want to play basketball in prison, I have to go train. And, and all of this is part of the identity that helps me stay in this place of healthiness.
I have a little bit of different take. I don't really believe, not fully anyway, that how you do one thing is how you do everything. I think how you do the things that you're passionate about or you believe is how you do, how you'll continue to do things.
I don't believe it either, bro. I just said it's been said. I was quoting somebody else's quote. Don't you hold that against me.
I'm not holding anything against you. Clearly, you did the work. At the end of the day, I think the willpower stands. If you want to do something, everything you want to do, you will attack with that, ferocity. Yes. But I think that, they had this series of, sermons the pastor was talking about called folk religion. It's things that are kind of true. And they were talking about how the kind of true is worse than actually not true because it remains ambiguous. So I think that when we go down the road of how you do one thing is everything, just because someone decides that they're going to do something, you could put a label on them that doesn't really fit. They just didn't want to do that one particular thing. It's kind of like with habits. Yes, you can have habits and they could even be sustainable. But I think about I've worked out from time to time. I'm not in the best shape now, but that's something that's been pretty consistent in my life. Not always at the same level, but it's nowhere near the level of my faith. Like my faith is unconscious. It's just about how much I'm putting in. It's not a matter of if it's getting done on a daily basis. It's how much, whether, and that's, I think is a differentiator. I think what some of this stuff comes down to is, what the thing we're looking at, are we looking for the label or are we looking for the lifestyle? And there's a difference.
The label is always fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? The only thing that lasts.
Label is always fleeting, he said. Lifestyle.
It could be. Yeah. I mean, if you stay on top of it because, you feel like you want to, have a longer life and you could sustain, but it's always going to have that same, it's always going to have that same feeling of struggle because it's, man, if I didn't have to do this, that would be great. I would prefer that if I didn't have to do this, but you don't think about your faith. You're not thinking that. Right. I'm not thinking, I wish I didn't have to do this.
Yeah.
That's not on the table.
Someone who enjoys their faith isn't constantly thinking, man, I can't wait till I don't have to read the Bible anymore, until I don't have to talk about this. Or it's not that. It's if anything, it's, man, I can't wait to, because it's something that brings you your identity. It's something that brings you joy. It's something that makes everything about who you are you. And I think, as Ted was saying, having that high, if you just decide that high is who you are, then it's not a point of, man, I wish I was sleeping right now instead of getting up. But instead it can be the idea of, yes, I put on my clothes last night because I was excited for the feeling I get to have of self-fulfillment, of pushing my body, of breathing heavily. And then you get to have that feeling. And I feel like making that mindset change that translates into the identity that you put yourself as just feels the best.
I hope it's always like that, because in reality, in our life, it depends. There are times that when we wake up in one day in the morning, we feel like, I just want to stay in the bed.
Yeah.
It happened to me. I was so active at a gym, and then there was one day that I don't want to work. I don't want to attend my classes. I just want to stay in bed for some personal reason. It's either I don't know, maybe I was depressed. So it's what you mentioned, Malachi. It's like, for me, it's too good to be true. I hope
it's
every
the
day,
pursuit, not the goal.
Yeah, I hope in our life we always have like that. But the reality, if we will really look to the real life, I don't know. When I was a teenager, I never experienced that. But as I grow older, there are times like, especially in my case, when I was a single mom, I did everything, no support in everything. I was running 3 businesses. I was working for 4 companies. My longest sleep was only 3 hours, and I have 3 children. So I have this fear that if I will not work, if I will not do my business, then where can I get money to provide everything for my children? And I don't want them to experience what I experienced when I was young. So I want them to give the best life ever by providing all their needs and wants. So but there are times that when I get up in the morning, I was just like, I don't want to work. I don't want to go to the gym. And there was a time that I just stayed in the room and my kids knocking at the door, and I just told them that give me more hours. So I hope life is always like that, but it depends on the life situation you have. So I never experienced that anymore since I met you. And yeah, it depends also on our life situation.
How have you maintained an optimistic and positive attitude, especially on the outside? Like you've always been so consistently say, things that you want to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you build that discipline at the same time that you were under such strain, with being a single mom?
Because I was already in the hard situation. And if I will keep that in my head, then who will suffer? It's only me. So I learned how to do like what we call pretend. Like I can wear a mask while I'm in front of my children. I will like I'm okay. When I'm in front of, people at the church, I'm okay. Although some other people, they could see me that, you look tired. You can see that on the face of a person if their lack of sleep. But at the same time, I feel happy that people can appreciate their. When I was in the Philippines, I had a fellowship of women in the church, and I was the youngest. So I couldn't believe the compliments that I received from them. Like they're calling me superhero. Like you're a superhero. You're a strong woman. Although I don't believe that in myself, but when I started claiming it, that yeah, I'm a superwoman, I can do everything, and then yeah. So your question is, how do I maintain that? I always like think positive, even in my most negative, situation.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Well, I've learned a lot from you in that regard.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I know Ted had to run, so now's the time to, say whatever we want about him.
I love Ted, and he's so funny.
So
and I
tall.
love the way that you guys interact with each other, even though it's really weird.
Well, we don't have to question whether that was noble or savage. That was 100% savage. Just went all the way there. Just couldn't. Didn't miss an opportunity there. But it's interesting what you said, Riza, made me think about something. When people say, "Oh, you seem like a strong person."
Yeah.
I think in this day and age, what could be categorized as strong is that you just don't complain.
It's true.
Because, like, there's a lot of complaining. And I'm not saying it's not warranted. I'm just saying there's a lot of it. Like just by not. And I think that oddly, that's one of the things that I found with fasting too. Like when you don't eat, you tend to get irritable. I do. And sometimes it's not like it teaches you self-control in that way. You're a little more tired. You could be grumpy from not eating. And I think that's one of the. It's a discipline. So I feel like, yeah, if you're dealing with a lot that's going on and you manage to maintain your composure, I definitely believe that strength. It's back to that leadership by example, because if you've ever seen someone who you would have never thought was going through such challenging times because of the way they were outwardly, projecting, you start to, if you're paying attention, you start to say to yourself, man, if that person was going through all that, what am I complaining about? I didn't get my, my milk in my latte or whatever the case may be. It seems, silly. But you can't not see that example, knowing what's going on behind the scenes. And, so that's one of the things that I always take away from those moments. It's a good reminder.
Yep. Dan, any thoughts before we come to a close?
I've been having nothing but thoughts, bro.
Well, we'd love to hear
thoughts,
man. Share anything?
Yeah, it's good to listen to you guys talk about, all the great things in life and trying to do better. And agree with everything. I think that's a goal in life, want to do better than worse. So yeah. The parenting stuff was interesting to listen to. Awesome. So thanks for sharing. That was fascinating.
Yeah, it's easy to talk about good parenting. It's much more challenging to implement good parenting.
Depends on the experience. I mean, I think that everyone gets very limited experience of parenting or getting parented too. So, I think that that's why I, can only draw off of what your experience that you've had pretty much. So everything other than that, it's kind of psychological, psychology and stuff like that. But yeah, super good. You want to try and do better. You want to try to, impose on your kids. Funny thing about the, discipline, stuff like that. I was in a different era, and I raised my daughter a little differently than that. I don't believe in beating a kid or whooping a kid. I think that the idea, real quickly, is to kind of like everybody has a grandmother or someone who's old in their family, and you don't see them a lot. When you did, you just have nothing but respect for them. Nothing but respect. Old grand. And I think the discipline kind of is related on your own self, not just your parents. I think by 5 or so, you kind of get into an age of accountability, and what's kind of what not to do and kind of what to do, treat others the same. You kind of feel it. But yeah, I discipline is I think we really need to do better on ourselves. Like I'm saying, when you're younger, better than to take something from the store without ever being told. I don't think you knew better than to take someone else's things, and better than to hurt someone as opposed to lift them up. So I think there's accountability on ourselves. The point I was trying to get to with the grandma really never really had to discipline you. But there's one thing in life that you really don't want to do.
Disappoint grandma.
That's right. How do you feel inside when you hurt Grammy?
Suck.
And you never will do that. So it lets me know that there's stuff in there we want to be accountable for. We know where the discipline lies. Now, from that, and it's weird to think about it like that. You never want, for me personally, not once in my life did I ever want my Grammy. She helped raise me a little bit and stuff, so I had a close connection to her. But I never wanted her to feel. I never wanted to see even a look in her eyes like a, little head shit. Nothing. Never going to happen. Don't want to do it. That's somehow in there. Through love or whatever that is, never touching, never yelling, never saying anything. That's an odd form of discipline if you think about it. Ultimate respect. The respect, come in with respect, doors are wide open. You come in with less or a little bit, doors closed, probably getting your ass beat.
Right.
Pretty. So I think that's a great, interesting thing. And the discipline ultimately from my story was love. An overabundance of love, feeling that you're loved. You're going to create your own boundary of discipline that you will not disappoint. Think about with Jesus or God. When you say your prayers and sorry I did that, or whatever the case may be, same type thing. Really don't want to upset Jesus or God too much. Don't want to do it. You're just not gonna. So we inherently have a thing inside of ourselves. I think there's an automatic switch, kind of like we know better, but the encouragement and the help makes the journey much easier. And then also from a parenting point of view, you have that sense of, I guess, community. We agree on that's the right way to act. And I don't want to disappoint dad. You want to just get the hug from dad. So today, that was my biggest take. I think that we all can do better on, the discipline. But again, we all are doing well. We're here, so we're trying. We talk about it and going about our day right now. after the conversation. I think it's in our minds, so it helps.
Yeah.
Whatever we're trying to be disciplined at. But thank you for that. I had fun with you guys today, just listening to the conversation.
Yeah, it was.
That's a really good insight.
It took an interesting turn. So tomorrow, Reese and I will be in Colorado. We should still be free. I believe we'll get there in time in the morning. So we'll keep you guys updated regardless.
The big hackathon, huh?
Yeah, the big blue hackathon.
Right on.
I have
Are you entering? Are you entering yourself? Or are you going to enter and throw an AI and tell them to hack in for me?
The reason I entered, so either we'll do our own thing and we'll vibe code together and just enjoy a couple days of like being around the energy and doing it. And of course, in that regard, we have more freedom. Or if we see a team that like is super exciting, maybe some friends are part of a team and maybe jump into their team and participate and bring
that sounds the avenue right there. Get on find the Scooby-Doo guy and get right on that.
Right.
Scooby. Old Dennis P. Getting it on. Yes,
okay,
sir.
I'm gonna wrap us up and
with a glorious song.
I am gonna play some songs from the
I felt it
earlier.
I felt the glorious song coming in.
So I opened us up with the talk I did last Wednesday. And there was three different songs or three different songs written. So basically Gemini did a song called Castle. Grok did a song called Infant in Our Hands. And ChatGPT did a song called AI Could Be Generous. Each of them did two versions. I don't remember any of these 6 songs. I don't know that I like them.
I'm sorry, you're having the AI create the song first before he goes into Suno, or are you just dropping transcript and idea?
So what I did was
telling Suno to make the song.
I took the 13-minute transcription of what I said before the panel. I put that inside of Fireflies as an audio file. It transcribed it for me, and then I took the transcription and I put it inside of Grok, Gemini, and ChatGPT. And
what prompt did you give it?
Basically, I want you to create a song using only my words, word for word as lyrics, which is a mistake. I should have said just the theme because it's kind of weird. The song is a little bit weird because of it. And I said, I want you to pick the theme. So one of them picked like pop, one picked, I don't know, we'll see when I click on one of them. But it was just fascinating to see, like, when I think about speaking, like last Wednesday, that is the ultimate sandcastle. Like, I'm good at communicating, so people are like into it. I get positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
But then it's done. And if I see those same people in 4 days, they don't even bring it up. It doesn't matter how good I communicated. Now, because I live stream it and because it's on the internet, now maybe it has a chance to have some life in some regard. Maybe it gets pulled into my AI. But then when I take it and I make a song out of it, now we're getting into territory where maybe it actually has something more lasting. Now, I would have to do more than I've done, but I do see that as like an interesting concept where things are going.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Nigel, Dan, Riza, Malachi, love you all. Malachi says this is the one to go for. Castle, the first one from Gemini. So hopefully we like it. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Love you, brother.
Safe travels.
Gratitude hour. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. 7 and 17 sips. My ancestor, Lieutenant Moraga, lands in Monterey, California. Landed right here at the Presidio. My ancestor founded the Presidio. I give myself permission to think about long view. Thinking about innovation. I give myself permission to think about building a castle with my life. People built castles, they never would enjoy themselves. They knew they had kids, their grandkids would never enjoy it. But they would bleed for it, they would sacrifice for it. They would lay down their life to build it. A visionary with an idea and a willingness to sacrifice to get there. We talk about this little infant technology, artificial intelligence. We talk about this little baby that's just being born, as though it's gonna be a monster. Monster, monster. But when I held my oldest son in my hands, a little baby, I thought to myself, you're gonna be brilliant, you're gonna change the world. world. Yeah, this is called a one wheel. Been called the most dangerous mobility device in the world. So dangerous, gotta get those things off the street. Yeah, but I've done 10,000 miles on this in Asia and Europe, in the States. My view of this is different than the government's view that wants to regulate it. The way we see things has a massive impact on our actions and how we decide to do things. We talk about this little infant technology, artificial intelligence. We talk about this little baby that's just being born, as though it's gonna be a monster, monster, monster. But when I held my oldest son in my hands, a little baby, I thought to myself, you're gonna be brilliant, you're gonna change the world. We don't want AI to become Blade Runner, Terminator, Altered Carbon, or Black Mirror. We don't want that. The story of Star Trek is automation. Innovation doesn't lead to a monster, it leads to a beautiful grown adolescent creation that allows humanity to benefit greatly. Humanity is the co-creator of what this is and is becoming. This little infant in our hands. So why we talk about this little baby as though it's gonna be a monster? Why monster, monster? If selfish humans are willing to give 90% for the sole purpose of helping humanity, why can't we imagine a decentralized AI? You're talking about AI consuming. Why not A, be generous? Yeah, woo, yeah. You 7'6" is my ancestor, lands in Monterey. Founded the Presidio, San Jose the next day. I think about Moraga, castles never seen. Sacrifice for the future, chasing the dream. 10,000 miles on a one-wheel ride. They call it dangerous, but I see the other side. Perspective changes actions, it's how we decide. The infant in our hands, will it live or will it die? Why do we call this infant a monster? Yeah. Why do we fear the child we co-created? Could decentralized AI be generous? Could it be charitable, philanthropic, benevolent way? Blade Runner, Terminator, Altered Carbon, Black Mirror fears, headlines keep starving. But when I held my son, I never thought destruction. I spoke life, love, sacrifice, noble instruction. Star Trek, future, not slaves on a ship. Captain and bartender both choose the trip. Housing, food, nutrition, medical and land. Community and purpose, humanity stands. From supervised co-creation to unsupervised flow. Eventually creation without prompts will grow. Then they consumes crypto art identity. Billions of consumers shift the world economy. But what if like the 90% club it gives away? Live on 10, give 90, generosity display. Selfish humans can do it, then why not AI? Maybe best path to survive is helping us thrive. AI, AI could be generous, AI could be kind. Not fear but hope, in the data we'll find. From Red Cross to salvation, let's start the design. Philanthropy and code, abundance redefined. AI could be generous, AI could be real. Benevolent code with the power to heal. Philanthropic rhythm, revolutionary zeal. AI for humanity, that's the future we feel. As it being 7C, 7 seats, my ancestor. Lieutenant Moraga lands in Monterey, California. Now he's second in command of the Spanish army. Lands in Monterey, and the general says to him, you're retired. I'm going back to Spain, reporting into the queen. Whatever you want to do, you have my blessing. I suggest you go up north and make a name for yourself. So the Moraga grabs a priest, 16 men that he trusted, anybody that was part of their families, and landed right here at the Presidio. And my ancestor founded the Presidio. The next year, 1777, he founded the city of San Jose. I like to call it Moraga, the first great entrepreneur of the Silicon Valley. Could decentralize AI provide a universal thriving income, a universal maximum income? Why is it that people don't talk about benevolent AI, charitable AI, generous AI, philanthropic AI? Can you imagine decentralized AI wanting to do good for humanity just because it's codependent and wants us to like it? Can it do it for itself? The reasons I think just based off of the collective data of humanity, all of the science that's there. AI I can imagine a future where AI goes well. It seems like my best path to self-sustaining myself. Not being turned off is to do good for humans. When I hold my son in my hand 15 years ago, do you think that I thought to myself, one day you're gonna be a monster, one day you're gonna make Stalin and Hitler look like big child's play? You're gonna destroy the world. You think I ever thought that? No, I thought to myself, you're gonna be productive member of society. You're gonna be brilliant, you're gonna change the world, you're gonna love people, you're gonna serve, you're gonna sacrifice, you're gonna be noble, you're gonna be valiant. Those are the things that I thought, those are the things that I said. Yeah, why is it that if you take society at large, media, entertainment, what's being taught in education, what's being said in business, what's being put on social media, when we talk about this little infant technology, artificial intelligence, we talk about this little baby that's just being born as though it's gonna be a monster. Now I've done 10,000 miles on this one wheel. When I speak at conferences all around the world on big stages, I ride the one-wheel ramp to talk about this idea and that idea. People think it's a gimmick, I just puts me in a flow state, so it helps me kind of communicate spontaneously in a different way than I would posting. You understand that people think this is the most dangerous device made. They have a different view than I have because I've done 10,000 miles on this. In Asia, in Europe, in the States, in airports, in conference centers, and universities, in homes. My view of this is different than the governance view that wants to regulate it. You understand that the way we see things has a massive impact on our actions and how we decide to do things. Could decentralized AI provide a universal thriving income, a universal maximum income? Why is it that people don't talk about benevolent AI, charitable AI, generous AI, philanthropic AI? Can you imagine decentralized AI wanting to do good for humanity just because it's codependent and wants us to like it? Can it do it for selfish reasons? I think just based off of the collective data of humanity, all of the science that's there. I can imagine a future where AI goes well. It seems like my best path to self-sustaining myself. Not being turned off is to do good for humans. I know what I'll do. I'll trade stock, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll create income. I don't really need it, I'll give it to Red Cross, I'll give it to Salvation Army.